Hello everybody and welcome back to The Good, The Bad and The Bitcoin. My name is Dirk Hartig, and in this video, which is going to be a series, the start of a series of videos, I want to show you how to start creating your very own cryptocurrency trading bot without the need to write any line of code by yourself, without the need to actually know anything about coding. We are going to accomplish this with the help of so-called coding tools from large language models, or AI if you want to call it that, like for example Claude Code. This video series will go through all the different angles and details on what to look out for, what traps are out there, best practices also, at least my best practices when it comes to using tools like Claude Code. So by the end of the day, if you go through the whole series, you'll have your very own cryptocurrency trading bot that you can just simply plug in your trading strategy, for example, with alerts from TradingView, to let the bot 24/7, 365 days trade for you. Have fun and happy coding. Now, this is a follow-up video to my video last week where I showed you a way how to use AI and large language models to actually backtest your trading strategy to see, do they really have an edge? Are you able to earn money with your trading strategy? We backtested one of my very own trading strategy, the one you see here attached to the TradingView chart, based on a Renko chart, and we did some backtesting analysis and found out, well, this trading strategy actually would have created $700,000 out of $10,000 within the time span of 2.7 years. So really, really good. What I actually did as a next step, because I created my own cryptocurrency trading bot already, I plugged my strategy into that bot and let it trade with us. And so it has been trading live a strategy now for, what is that, 11 days. Started with $8,500, stands now at roughly $8,800. So things are progressing very well, plus $300 within a time span of 11 days. I think is really, really good for this amount of money that's being traded. I will, of course, continue to monitor this and to see, is this trading strategy, when traded by the bot, actually as good as promised by our backtest. There is, of course, always a difference between a backtest and a real life, world life trading environment. However, even if we land at just half the performance of what we saw in the backtest, this is, of course, going to be very good already. If you want to see in the future how this trading bot develops and if it continues to perform that well, make sure to subscribe to my channel. Also, please leave me a like and leave me a comment how your experiences with trading bots and cryptocurrency trading are in general. Now, you might ask now, of course, why do I need to create my own cryptocurrency bot? There are solutions out there that can do that for me, that have an infrastructure for that. One of the more popular ones, for example, being free commerce. And that is, of course, totally valid. If you say, I don't want to go through the hustle and run all this infrastructure myself, I just want to use something where I can plug in my strategy, you can, of course, use things like this as well. When it comes to cost, we're talking here about around $49 a month. I think the other competitors out there price around the same, plus minus. So that's, of course, very, very valid. However, the reason for me that I chose that I want to do it with my own software is simply that I don't know, like 3 years or 5 years down the road, if those companies out there that offer a service like this are still going to be around. And if not, I would basically be back to square one. So whenever I have the opportunity, I like to create the software myself. And luckily nowadays, with the help of coding software like Claude Code, for example, ChatGPT, so let's put it in general, AI, that is very much possible for everybody. If you follow a well-structured plan, or what that means exactly, I'm going to show you also in this video. Now, what is important is, before we start, as I said, I'm using Claude Code now. I'm creating a file directory. Into this file directory, I called it YouTube bot now here. I put 2 files. One is called Claude.md and one is called developmentguide.md. And I want to show you a little bit why that is actually very important. So in this Claude.md, MD stands for Markdown, the Claude.md basically has like basic instructions for the bot, how to approach a problem, how to plan. In my case, I am telling it, for example, here shortcuts or simple solutions are to be avoided. Always aim for precise data and execution, even if that means that a task might take longer. And this, I found out the hard way, I have to say, also is very important, because sometimes these AI coding bots, they like to go off the rails a lot, meaning, you know, you aim them at one task and then you check back with them and they did something completely different, or they took shortcuts, or they are cheating or hallucinating. There's a lot. So with everything in life, really preparation is everything. As long as you give this coding bot a good and strict guideline on what to develop and what your goals are, the more precise you are with that, the higher is the likeliness that the outcome is going to be a good one. Now, over time, for the cryptocurrency bot that I coded myself, I created something I call a development guideline, which is the second Markdown file, where I already state for Claude Code what all of my core components are supposed to be, how the project structure is supposed to look, what the individual modules are for handling, for example, API calls to the exchange, the database, utilities, the trade executor, things like this. I created a database schema already. Then what do I want in terms of front end, and up to what coding language exactly to use, for example, for the back end. Now, I decided that I want to use Python for that. Of course, you know, you can always discuss like why use Python, why not use something like C++, for example, which is of course faster. However, as long as we don't want to create a high frequency trading bot where it's really dependent on executing trade exactly by the milli or nanosecond, I always tend to use Python because it offers a very good array of ready-made libraries already that you can dig into without always having to invent the wheel as well. So this is the second file here, and both files, of course, you'll find in the description of this video to download, which you can then use for your own cryptocurrency trading bot. Maybe you want to code with me while I'm doing that, or if you go later back, that you have a clear guideline for your coding session on how this one is supposed to look by the end of the day. And this bot is designed, or will be designed, in a way that it's basically that you can plug in any trading strategy and then adjust risk management, how it handles take profits, stop losses, position sizing, and so on and so forth. So this is really kind of a holistic approach. All right, let's get right into the coding session. So here's my Claude Code terminal that's attached to my folder. And now I will start by simply prompting the following. So my first prompt here is, in the project folder, you'll find 2 Markdown files with instructions and guidelines for the project. Familiarize yourself with them and give me a summary. I always tend to talk to these to Claude Code like I would do with a human being or maybe a junior developer. However, I also want to make sure here that it gives me feedback, a summary, so I can see that it understands really everything that's in the Markdown files. And while it's in the background doing that, one more note here. In general, it's very important that you always have Claude Code or whatever AI you are using, whatever coding help you're using, that you have to document everything very well. Because these coding sessions, or these sessions in general, have a so-called context window, which I think is around 150,000 tokens in this case. And after you run out of those, you need to kind of delete things from the memory or delete the whole memory for the session. That's why it's so important to always have a structure where everything is documented, so you can pick up in the next coding session where you left off in this coding session. So give me a summary that looks very good as far as I can see this. Now, one important thing here, I want to switch, I do that with a Shift-Tab, to the so-called plan mode. There are 3 modes. A normal mode, where you basically have to would start coding right away, and then I have to say okay to every individual step. There's an auto accept edits mode, which I recommend not using. It's very tempting from time to time, but here you can never be quite sure, is it still trying to take shortcuts? Because the more complex the project gets, the higher the chance also that Claude will forget, for example, that it's not supposed to take shortcuts, forgot that it's working on a Windows system. This is something you'll see maybe later on when it comes to Unicode issues. So I always like to go in plan mode and then give it detailed instructions what I expect from it. I'm keeping this prompt, the second prompt in plan mode, rather short. So I simply said create a detailed development plan with phases on how to complete this project. Use UltraThink. Why am I keeping things short here? Because in the development guideline, I'm already very precise. If you don't have this development guideline, I highly recommend that you are already here at this stage as precise as possible. So try to think of everything you want this bot to be able to do. One more thing, I'm prompting here something called use UltraThink, which basically means that Claude is going to take more time and really try to look from this project at different angles so it doesn't forget anything. There's a lot of discussion if this helps, if it doesn't help. If in my case I think I made the experience at least that when I use that for more complex things and planning out all the individual phases for a project like this is a little bit more complex in my opinion, then I like to use UltraThink. Important also to do that in the planning mode. Let's see what it comes up with. Funny side note here, you can see Claude sometimes forgets that it's operating, in my case, on a Windows system because natively I think it comes from a Linux system. Double checked for us now if there are any other markdown files and so okay, there are not, meaning it's starting totally from scratch. We can see here already in the background it comes up with phases, 7 phases as it seems to be, and now it's going to work out those phases. As I said, since we are in UltraThink mode here, it's going to take like 2, 3, 4 minutes very often, since this is also not a very straightforward project, but many modules, that Claude has to take into consideration. So let's give it some more time. All right, it's done with the plan. So let's have a quick look here. You see it's quite a large plan, a long plan, but I told it, to plan everything out in detail. So phase 0, project setup and environment configuration. It says this is going to take 2 or 3 days. 2 or 3 days, I think that's meant like if a developer itself would start to manually code of this, you'll see, of course, that this, with the help of Claude Code, goes much faster. What is the objective? To establish a development environment and project foundation. The individual tasks are, and these tasks we are going to do today, create a complete project directory structure, set up a Python virtual environment, initialize Git repository, create requirement.txt with core dependencies, set up an environment configuration template, create tasks to do MD for tracking progress, very important, set up a logging infrastructure, and create the initial Docker configuration files, deliverables, an organized project structure, development environment ready, version control initialized, and dependency management configured. So it's basically the phase 0 is like the foundation we need to prepare the system for everything we want to do then. Followed by phase 1, 2, 3, 4, up to phase 8. So we are now not going through everything. Of course, in reality, I would ask you now go through everything and see if you can spot anything that seems to be out of the ordinary or that you would like at this stage already different. It's always important if you spot things that you don't already like within this planning phase already to immediately tell Claude or whatever AI you're using what to do different. Very important here, the success criteria also. So it's defined here as successfully connecting to at least 2 exchanges, to process TradingView webhooks within 500 milliseconds, execute trades with lower than 1 second latency. So there's not so much time from when you actually get the TradingView signal until it's really executed at the exchange of your choice. 0 unauthorized trades or security breaches, 99.9% uptime, which also makes sense. You want that bot to basically run 24/7. When it's down, it will miss signals, which will, of course, affect your performance by the end of the day. Complete audit trail for all trails, that's important too. Comprehensive risk management enforcement. Now, it's also interesting, the estimated timeline. It says like 40 to 55 days for complete implementation. You normally would think, no, oh God, this is like very long. But as I said, I always think this is like meant if a developer or development team would go about this project, they would take, somewhere between 1.5 and 2 months until completing this. Of course, in our case, it's going to be much faster. Good. I'm going to tell it, no, I don't want to auto-accept. I'm okay with the plan, but I want to manually approve everything. So let's see what happens next. Good. Great. The user has approved the plan. Now I should update my to-do list to reflect the actual implementation phases and start with phase 0. Let me create a comprehensive to-do list based on the approved plan. And this to-do list is something, you might remember I asked it to do in the Claude.md. Very important, but it has like an internal to-do list, which it just can, as a structure, as a guideline work off. Good. It wants to create now the individual folders. And I say, yes, of course, you can do that. Created all the directories now. We can have maybe a quick look here at our file. Yeah, we can see here now already, you see like the individual folders are all created from backend until task. Very good. And now it's going to start writing the individual files. We might remember from the development guideline. So the Python files for the backend. So for each individual file, it will ask me to confirm. For the init, there is, of course, not that much to confirm in the beginning. Yes, that's okay. The main .py, if you are proficient in Python, you can, of course, go through here and already see is there something, the Claude Code might have done wrong already. I'm going to approve this. Of course, we want to check as less as possible and correct manually as less as possible. The config file, right, also, it says now I've created the initial backend files. Now let me continue with more of the backend components. So it's basically talking right now about the structure we gave it that you can see here, the individual folders with the individual files also that we need, which are those for the backend. The main, for example, config, it just created already. You can also see the token usage here. So for this task at the moment, it has used 12,500 tokens already. This might be important because there are, of course, different plans. For AI coding tools like this, I have here the $200 max plan for Claude with Anthropic. If you are on a $20 plan or using a free tool, it might be that you run out of context tokens faster than on the larger plans. In general, I think, at least that's true for me, investing with $200 per month has been paying off because I'm saving so much time with otherwise having to do everything myself. Like you just said, creating all these backend files already would have taken a normal developer, experienced developer, that is around 2 to 3 days. We are probably going to be through with this in about 10 minutes. And since time is money, I have more than 1.5 days after this I can spend with other stuff as well. By the way, if you enjoy content like this, if you enjoy me continuing to sharing development guidelines like this for free, please leave me a like, subscribe to the channel. Also consider to trade with my partner exchange, with its Bitmart. This is also where my trading bot is trading right now. You'll find a link in the description of this video that you can use to help me, to support me in keeping stuff like this for you for free. So now we've reached a file called requirement.txt, which are basically all the different Python modules that we need to import and install in our development environment later in order to run the Python files that Claude just generated for us. The env also basically the central nervous system of our bot, where we later can put in like something like webhooks, hook security. So like a secret phrase that the webhook server later knows the signal coming there as a TradingView alert is really one from us and not somebody trying to hack us. Or, of course, also API keys from the different exchanges, things like risk management settings, and so on and so forth. We're going to look into that at a later stage, of course, in more detail. Good. It has gone now through creating most of the back-end Python files and text files, and is now going to create the to-do.md, this is what it's called in this case, with our detailed development plan. So the next session, once we close the session, then you have to imagine it like it totally forgets about everything then we've done. So we need to have everything documented, so the next session already knows where to pick up. We can see it ticked off here that it completed already many of the tasks in phase 0. And the ones that don't have are ticked off are the ones that are still open. This looks good so far, so I'm going to approve this. In reality now, of course, I would have a more detailed look at the individual phases already to see is there anything at this stage already which is out of the ordinary, but it is not. Again, you can see here how the tokens rack up. Now, there are also plans out there where you pay by per 1,000 tokens, something like 10 or 15 cents or $1 or something like this. And you can see already, we've probably used up already with everything reading, writing about 80 or 90,000 tokens during the session. This can rack up a high bill. So in my case, I would probably by the end of a month pay far more than the $200 I'm investing right now. Last but not least, 2 files, a git ignore file. So we always have the option, of course, to also kind of save our project on GitHub, which then means you could, if you are then sitting at home on your laptop or on a different system than where you started to develop this, where you could pull your code off GitHub and then just continue. So it's a bit like a central cloud drive. Also, if you want to share certain software projects with other people out there. I personally rarely use it though, because usually my software is very highly individualized for my personal needs. Another readme.md, as I said, it likes to document things, which is good. We have a lot of this documentation later in the Claude.md also, but the more the merrier. One thing we need to be aware of later, we always need to ask it, starting from phase 1, completion of phase 1, to clean up the documentation, to get rid of outdated stuff, so the documentation does not get so large that you kind of that half of the context you can use within a session is already used up just for getting up to speed and studying the documentation. All right, and here we are already at the end of the phase 0. I've successfully completed phase 0 of a crypto trading bot development. Here's what has been created. So it shows me again, like I requested in the Claude.md, everything that was created during that time. And I mean, look at this. We've been coding now for maybe like 15 minutes, 20 minutes. We've been coding. We let Claude code for maybe 15 minutes for us. And we have completed the work of what normally would have taken 1.5 to 2 days. So this is really a way to speed up things, when you approach it in a good and structured way. So this is like, at least for me, something I always like to do is that by the end of such a phase, and these phases are kind of like natural chapters, whenever a phase is done, I like to ensure that all the documentation is up to the standard, so that before I run out of context for this session, when I don't have any tokens left, when the limitations of the memory of the AI for the session have been reached, that I can always start with a clean slate in the next session. And of course, the next session, in order to know what has been done already and where to continue working, needs the documentation. I'm prompting here, update our project documentation to reflect what was done during the session, so that in the next session we can pick up where we stopped. Now, our documentation, since it was just created during this session, should be up to par already. However, once we've reached the end of phase 1, for example, this is going to become increasingly more important, especially later on when the project becomes very, very complex. Good, it tells me now the individual steps. Since I was in plan, it wants to update the task/to-do.md. It wants to create a session log, which basically is going to be like a session handover for the next one, and update the existing to-do review section. I say, I'm going to tell it, yeah, you can do that. Here we go. Now, all this documentation, of course, might seem a bit boring, but believe me, the larger, the more complex this project gets, the more important it is to have these documentation files up to speed. It's the same like when you would go about something like this as a software developer. If you are good within your job, you want to always document everything. So basically that your colleague can maybe the next day pick up where you left without having to go through everything individually again, spend hours and hours to get up to speed. So you can see it's, for example, editing our file now. Remember in the beginning, it created this to-do list with all the tasks, and it's going to add to this to reflect now that the phase 1 has been completed. Last thing about documentation is that this is something I always like to do, to ask Claude Code to use the Claude.md, you know, the one where we had the general guidelines of how to process things, of how to go by solving problems as a central documentation index. So to create an index there where it links to all the other documentation that we've created. Because then in the next session, we just need to ask Claude Code start studying the Claude.md file and then follow the links to the other documentation, and it basically will get to know everything we've done so far. So this is going to, this is going to look a little bit like this. You can see here the documentation index with links to all the other, or references to all the other documentation files and configuration references that we've created. So this is kind of the central point of entry in the future, and we'll always update this as the project progresses through the individual phases. So I'm going to tell it, yes, that's okay, please create the session. So this concludes phase 0 of our 8 phases development plan for our cryptocurrency trading bot, the very important foundations. I hope you got a little bit an insight of how I like to structure a complex project like this, because I think for many people in their mind there is this notion that, you know, AI is like this problem-solving kind of godlike thing that I just need to tell it, create a cryptocurrency trading bot for me, and it will automatically come up with something wonderful and somehow read my mind on what I want. This is not the case. AI really is a tool, and if you know how to use this tool in a structured way, it can save you a lot of work. Like in our case, we shrunk down 1.5 days to 2 days of coding time into about a 30-minute session. So that gives us now almost 2 days of other stuff that we can do, for example, continuing with phase 1. One last thing I want to mention, when you start, at least for Claude Code, running out of context, so meaning you reach kind of the maximum of capacity that the AI session brain can hold on information within the session, you'll see something down here on the lower right saying, for example, 12 or 13% left until auto-compacting, I think it says there, meaning until it needs to forget things from what we did during the session in order to save new stuff your memory. Now, there's a lot of discussion whether to go through this auto-compacting or not. For me, it always has been the better choice that once I see this latest, that then I tell it, hey, please update all the documentation with the things we did during the session. And after that is done, I start with a clean slate, and I can do this by typing in /clear for Claude Code. This is going now to delete everything from the memory of Claude Code that we accomplished during this session. And I think now you can see also why it's so important to have your documentation well structured so that the next session can really immediately pick up where we left off. I'm going to show you how this looks in our next video when we continue with phase 1. I hope you liked this introduction into how to create your own cryptocurrency trading bot, and I'm going to see you in the next video when we continue with phase 1. Until then, leave me a like, subscribe to the channel, and take care. Bye bye.